Good evening. This is April Sheehan Corkery from the Roots Party of Ireland. Presently, this live it's our Easter commemorative live. We will be starting off with a reading of the proclamation, an analysis of the contents of the proclamation and what that means for the Irish people, and what that means, for our future. What we can do presently, even through peaceful means, to bring forth the future that was envisioned for us by the people who fought in the Rising and the signatories of the Rising and the leaders of the Rising. This will be put up on YouTube as well in full, and there will be clips of it put up on the TikTok both of the party and of the my own. Now, we will start with the reading of the proclamation. Public na Héireann, the Provisional Government of the Irish Republic to the people of Ireland. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having gained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizens' Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely awaited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment and, supported by her exalted children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying on in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of but relying on in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people. Government has not extinguished that right, nor can it ever be extinguished except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right and again asserting in arms in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to freedom, of its welfare, and of its exaltation amongst the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to and hereby claims the allegiance of every Irishman and Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all the children of the nation equally and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government which have divided minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland and elected by the suffrages of all her men and women, the Provisional Government hereby constituted will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity or rapine. It is in this supreme hour the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called. This was signed by Thomas J. Clark, Sean McDermott, Padraig H. Pearse, James Connolly, Thomas McDonough, Eamon Kent and Joseph Plunkett. Now, we'll go through the content of the proclamation, and so basically it starts out with, in the name of God and the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland through us summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. And in that context, Catholicism was and still is the majority religion in Ireland at the time, and with regards to our old tradition of nationhood, Ireland has always been a nation. Ireland, even though it is often said, by, for example, British people who would like to, reduce our we'll say, unity, and we were always a nation. We had different kingdoms, but we were united under a high king. We had a united culture that was separate to that of the rest of Europe. We were a people. We have always been a nation, and it goes on in having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizens' Army. Having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment and, supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. Now, that sentiment can be both taken, that in its sense was about the actual rising, the revolution that we have. And we were, and as Patricia here says, an oppressed people for so long, which is why they fought so hard in 1916. That's just from the comments. Now, as well as that, this can also be seen in the modern day, even through a peaceful lens of that we need to organise and fight for ourselves. For first of all, relying on our own strength and our own unity as people, and making links with each other and finding strength in community and things, but also people who are of Irish descent abroad. Even though it's kind of, we'll say, unpopular to say, should A not be forgotten and B can be relied upon also for strength. We are the holders of our own culture. But and we should, be the gatekeepers of what are and aren't our cultural mores. However, people abroad who are of Irish descent can be kind of brought in and we'll say, essentially got to adhere to our cultural mores of unity and we'll say acceptance of all, both for our good and for the good of all other nations in the world. We, as Irish people, have we've a unique situation where there's about 100 million people worldwide of Irish descent, and if we were to decide, collectively amongst ourselves that we are going to work for the good of Ireland and work for the good of all the people all around the world, we can affect change to a scale never before seen. We are probably one of the, outside of the Chinese and Indians, we are probably one of the largest ethnic groups. Well, there's other places, there's, say, like, I'd imagine that Nigeria would be ahead of us and things, but we'd be well up there with regards to people of descent from around the world. So we can affect positive change, both to liberate ourselves from the current system and to liberate other people from the current system. And our gallant allies in Europe, which emphasises the strength within forming allegiances with other peoples and, for collective aim, whatever they may be. At the time it was against England, but it could be for anything. So we can, first of all, from within ourselves, and secondly, from within those, our cousins abroad, and thirdly, from those who are our allies and align with us, we can, starting from here, affect change worldwide, both for the cause of our own liberty and for the cause of liberty of everyone else. Now, we declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies, to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished, except by the destruction of the Irish people. So for as long as we live, and as long as we are here, we can declare our sovereignty over our own destinies. We can have the unfettered control of our own country, and what we do with our own country, regardless of what, for example, the likes of the IMF, anyone we owe money to, foreign powers, foreign corporations might have to say on the issue. The power resides within the people, if the people will only unite. If the people will only unite and take on the system that we currently have, we are sovereign and indefeasible, regardless of who may have tried to usurp that right. At the time when this was written, we were facing the biggest empire to ever exist. And we are still facing the biggest empire to ever exist, but it's not just the Brits that are behind it. You have a whole array of the Western Empire. And we have a choice now where we can either throw our lot in with the Western Empire and bow down to them and aid them in attacking other oppressed peoples around the world. We can go and we can decide to align with the upcoming Eastern Empire, who are doing the same, or we can decide through our own sovereignty and through supporting the sovereignty of other small nations that we are collectively saying no, both us on our own land and us and everyone else everywhere else. No. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right, and again asserting it in arms in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare, and of its exaltation amongst the nations. Now that, in attached to the last, the people at that time who were oppressed worse than we are now, and we're not too far from being there again, can people not push their money where their mouth is and lay down their friendship to other people alongside them and to other people throughout the world? If they were willing to give their lives for us to have this, what are we doing sitting taking orders? Why are we taking orders from the government, and why are we taking orders from foreign corporations and from whoever else decides to give us orders? Vulture funds and who have you. The Irish Republic is entitled to, and hereby claims, the allegiance of every Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty. Now, I'm going to stop there and I'm going to go through all these rights. Religious and civil liberty. Now, we had, when we got our independence, we were under a complete theocratic state under the rule of Eamon de Valera, and for most of our history, Fianna Fáil, in hand with the church. Now, while I personally am a Catholic, there's an awful lot of people here watching this and, nationwide who are Catholics. We cannot deny the terrible hand that the church had in what went on in this country. Nor can we allow it to continue to be denied the hand that our politicians, and that's particularly Fianna Fáil, but Fine Gael weren't innocent either, in subjugating the Irish people from the pulpit, from the Dáil. So that cannot be allowed to go on. We need to have true religious and civil liberty. That means accepting of all religions and who are within this nation, and accepting of all people who are within this nation, and accepting people's rights to self-determination, and accepting people's rights to live their life the way that they want to and do whatever it is that they want to do. Now, equal rights is the next 2 words on that. Equal rights are of the utmost importance here, because for too long we have had issues of, for example, the travelling community being put down. Before we ever saw a foreigner, the travelling community were kept underfoot. Single mothers, women in general, less well off than people up the road or down the road. We have had, even though this was the foundational document of our fight for freedom, and even though Eamon de Valera, who was our first leader, was there at the rising, he couldn't have gone further from this document. And this document now is essentially what we need to be looking at to see where to go in the future. This is the future that was envisioned for us and laid down for us by the people who were martyred for our freedom at the 1916 Rising. And it is as true and as important today as it was when it was written. And equal opportunities to all its citizens. Now, we cannot say in this country that we have equal opportunities. some people might be a little bit better off and might have more rights than what they had 50 years ago. But we do not have equal opportunities for our people. And we do not have. Once again, I'm just trying to invite someone there. No, we do not have. Where was I? We do not have equal opportunities for our people, and we do not. Like at this point now, if you, for example, you do not have the access to services that someone living in Dublin or Cork has. If you live in a deprived area in Dublin or Cork, you're even worse off than someone in a rural area. Because a person in a rural area can at least rely on its neighbours, and there's a certain level of community spirit there. People in disadvantaged areas are left out to their own devices altogether. And for example, if I was cold, I could go and I could borrow a bit of timber or a bit of turf and light the fire, even if I had nothing. Someone who's cold inside in a city has to put up with it and freeze. That's part of the issue. There is no equal opportunities. They might pretend, they might put on kind of a facade of us having equal opportunities in this country, but we do not have equal opportunities. And declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and of all its parts, cherishing all the children of the nation equally. Now, we cannot say, even now, or at any time up to this, all the children of the nation have been cherished equally. There has been years and years and years of class distinction, ethnic distinction, and also of distinction on the basis of class and area. We've had generations upon generations of complete inequality. It's only worse it's getting. While people might have freedom and they might be more integrated on the surface of things, the gap between rich and poor is growing and growing and growing in this country. And as Patricia down in the comments says, we never had true equality in Ireland. We do not have true equality today. But it is in our interest and the interest of everyone else within this country that now from now on that we start fighting for true, genuine equality, and that can only be done through socialist means. And oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government, which have divided a minority from the majority in the past, and that is still going on. Because not only are our government dividing and conquering with issues like trying to make a big thing out of LGBT people looking for their rights, or about refugees and immigrants that have come into this country, you have the British at it as well. Because most of the groups that are pushing division within this country are backed by British money, British and American money. I see Roger's there. Roger, do you have anything to say on that, or will I walk away?
Oh, she couldn't. Can you hear me? You can.
I can. I'll just turn it up a small.
Oh yeah, no, I just joined in there. Sorry, I missed the planned one last night. Just fucking Jesus, a bit hectic over Easter here.
Sure, we know.
The rest of them are. Yeah, the rest of them are gone away to the beach now. So we're up in Donegal. So I had a bit of free time. I've been rejigging the old sheds and stuff. So yeah, I just sat down in my arse and saw you on the live, so I said I'd come on.
Ah, good man. Do you want to say anything on what I've said so far, or will I continue on with the proclamation and we can have a chat after that, or which way do you want to do it?
Go for it. Sure, you keep cracking. I listen in.
Right. Just in case you thought I was ignoring you. Where was I here? Right. All the children and oblivious of the differences. Yeah, because as I said, now you have the British, which divide the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland and elected by the suffrages of all her men and women, the provisional government hereby constituted will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. Now, they didn't really succeed in that at the time. But again, we cannot say that the national government is representative of the people in Ireland. Because even though technically we all get a vote and we have a representative democracy, which is a little bit more representative than what they have in, say, for example, America. But at the same time, we've had generations upon generations of landlords and big landholders telling us what selling us the plans that they have as for our good. Now, me personally, being a syndicalist, which is the same ideology as James Connolly, I would prefer to see Ireland directly, democratically run, with as little government interference as possible. And I view that as the only way that that the running of Ireland can represent the people of Ireland, is to allow the people of Ireland to administer the country directly. Now, we place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity, or rapine. In the supreme hour of the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves to the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called. Now, we still need to prove ourselves worthy of freedom and independence, because even though, for the religious aspects of it, placed Ireland under the protection of our Most High God and invoked his blessing, but we have more often been dishonoured by cowardice, inhumanity, and rapine. We have had a serious level of cowardice in the country and within politics and within what we've done. For example, anything that went up in the North during the Troubles was never really challenged by our government, even though they are our people too. I'm not going to go into a whole big thing, but there would have been no need for example, the IRA, if there was actually pressure put on the British government over Northern Ireland. There's a whole heap of things like that have been abject cowardice, and it is through that we are dishonoured. So at this point now, we need to start getting a bit of bravery, even if it's pacifist bravery. I personally am a pacifist, and we need to start claiming our country, our destiny, and our people for ourselves. Now, and as I said, and it was signed by the signatories. Now, Roger, would you like to come in there?
Sure, can you hear me?
I can hear you, go on.
Jesus, well, the first thing that makes me think is the North, and the sort of the way they were kind of abandoned and stuff. But it's like, what would have happened, I suppose. It's like, it's trying to decide what is the right sort of level of solidarity. There's a whole can of worms there. It's like, you're sort of saying that they're us, that the sort of Irish people have a definition that encompasses those people in the North. And that's a really tricky definition to make. Can of worms. And then the other, I suppose, can of worms is like, how would we protect, how should we have protected those people? Instead of like leaving it to paramilitaries. And maybe if, I suppose, some of the thinking would have been that if we did step in, or if we did sort of, in some way, respond, then like that would have potentially given the British government an excuse to fucking have a go at us below. And I really think that was a possibility, especially when you had the Thatcherite, era and stuff during the Troubles. I'm giving you more questions than answers here. I don't know, but Jesus Christ, how to be positive. What going forward, if we were to aim for a united Ireland, which I think we probably should.
Yeah.
What do you think is the best anarcho-syndicalist way? What's first of all, what's the end game? And second of all, what is the means to get to the end game without violence, I guess? Is that a good question?
It is a good question. Well, I'd first of all like to cover, the issue of the Troubles era. Because even though it would be foolish of us to have really military engaged at the time, because we were completely outphased. Now, we could have armed ourselves since independence, and we could have armed ourselves from then to now. But with that said, at the time, Britain couldn't really function without us. Because even though we were, we had our independence, we were still A, feeding them, B, supplying them with men for the reconstruction of Britain after the war. There was a whole heap of things. There was actually an awful lot of leverage we had over Britain at the time. And we just decided to wash our hands of it and make money and, get away into the European Union and whatever else have you. And in that, abandon the people above in the North. There's a whole heap of things that could have been done diplomatically, and there's a whole heap of economic pressure that could have been levied, because the British at the time, we had no industry. We had food production. The British weren't really doing anything for us. They needed us to feed them. But because, again, we were third position, kind of, we weren't aligned to either west or east during that whole era, we could have sold that food to anyone. There were several times when the Soviet Union actually looked to us to buy things, and we said no, we're sending it to Britain. So there's a whole heap of things that could have happened that time. But with regards to now, the main thing is that part of it would be, for example, now there seems to be a mythos amongst Protestants in the north that Protestants down here have a terrible life, which isn't true at all. Because I don't know like what it's like up the country, but down here, like,
Sorry, April, just to interrupt you. I'm going to get, there's a heap of kids coming in here now, so it's going to get loud. I'm going to turn off the mic, all right?
all right, no bother.
Grant, I'm still here listening.
Yeah, but at the time, or even now, like, I don't know what it's like further up the country, but at least here in Munster, the bulk of the Protestants here would be County Cork. And, like, they just live and work and farm away alongside the people that are there in County Cork alongside them. And there's a good few in West Limerick as well. There's kind of no real distinction made on a day-to-day basis. And I think largely it would actually probably calm the Protestants in Northern Ireland an awful lot to actually see what happens down here, that they're just treated like everyone else. And like, outside of a few bits of jokes and things, we get on fine. About the only difference between a Protestant farmer and a Catholic farmer down here is a tweed jacket. But like, overall, with regards to the north, we need to start, doing more kind of, we'll say, cross-border projects. Like, for example, there's talk of roads and rail and that kind of thing, kind of integrating more in with us in kind of a friendly sense. And yeah, it's just there once again, then Patricia saying about so many lords still owning so much of the best land. That shouldn't be happening. Again, like, I know, Patricia, I think I've talked to you about this before. I want to bring back the Land Commission, but we won't get into that right now this instant. But basically, with regards to Northern Ireland specifically, we need to be kind of integrating them in with us and getting them used to us. Because at this point now, there's some of them who don't, they've never seen one of us. Unless one of us goes up for something, they've never been down here. There's some of them now who flat out are actually afraid to leave the streets to live on, even to this day. So what we need to do is we need to kind of, integrate them with us here. Like, we're not so bad, but also you have to stop doing all the hateful stuff, like the kill all tyke stuff and the bonfires and that kind of crack. That has to stop. So like, we'll stop. Like, it has to be two ways, because I'm not one of those people who thinks that unionists have to be, kept patted and kind of, will say, bowed to. Like, there is two sides to, like, they do need to kind of come some way to meet us as well. But overall, now, a couple of things we can do in the Republic is, for one, it would be an awful lot easier of a sell for United Ireland if we were to actually have something like the NHS, but even better, because they're starting to privatise the NHS now. If we had a universal healthcare system, if we had more availability of social housing, if we had more general services, and if they saw, to be honest with you now, people can be as ideological as they like, but one of the biggest motivators of most people is actually financial. So if we combined having a universal healthcare system, more housing, and obviously cheaper housing, and still maintain the fact that we have a better social safety net down here, the dole is an awful lot higher down here. That alone would encourage a lot of them. If we had, we'll say, a very good health system. So like, there's an awful lot of things that we can do by improving the standard of living in the Republic alone. That would actually go a lot of the way, and especially if we could actually hire a lot of people from up north, and kind of show them how things go here and get them going and getting on well with us. We can, after that, then it's not that difficult to put it to them like, lads, we're kind of friends now. Would we not just join up and forget about England there, and that kind of thing. But at the same time, then as well, like, as like, I believe in kind of slightly subdividing the country a little bit anyway, under a direct democratic things, like giving a certain level of autonomy to counties and provinces, to kind of along the lines of the whole Éire Nua thing. Like I said it to you there before, Roger, like, I would like to see kind of, we'll say, a semi-autonomous Munster, Leinster, Connacht and Ulster. But also, now personally, and I think I said it to a couple of other people as well, I would like to see, I'd like to, if we had 5 provinces, we'll bring Meath back. That can be the Greater Dublin area. So if we had 5 provinces that were kind of semi-autonomous and had their own budget and were able to administer themselves within the needs of those regions, we would, it would be much easier to incorporate the North, because they still would be semi-autonomous. So they would still they'd be in with us, but they'd be semi-autonomous. So, then after a while, like, they'll kind of get used to it. It's a bit like the devolution of powers situation. And just see there, what do we do with Dublin, the Pale, etc.? Make that its own province. So basically you'd have Leinster as a greater thing, and you'd have Dublin and the Greater Dublin area. So basically, they have completely, like, there's more difference between me and most people above in Dublin than there is between me and most people above in, County Derry. It's like, there's more difference between me and a Protestant in County Derry than there is between me and someone in Dublin, unless they were one of my own cousins. So basically, like, Dublin does need its own, we'll say, run of things, because they have their own needs, they have their own wants, they have a completely different economy to the rest of the country, and a completely different outlook. Like, most of the rest of the country is based on, say, tourism, the agri-foods industry, and small-scale manufacture. Everything above in Dublin is tertiary services. So, while it's ideal, to have all that in the same economy, like, as I've said to you before, in my opinion, that we need to industrialise Ireland, but industrialise it under, as we'll say, basically Europe's eco manufacturing hub, because we have so much land, we can produce so many materials sustainably that we could just go from just having the agri-food industry to having the agri-food and every other kind of manufacture, but done off of, we'll say, bio things. Like, for example, you'll be talking bioplastics, natural textiles, stuff like that. There's various things that we can do, plus bringing back some of the crafts we lost. I am near one of the dead animal collection places, and essentially you should see the bales of skins that they're sending out. I'm not sure whether it's to India or China they're sending them. Now, with modern technology, and with modern machinery, we can process that here with an awful lot lower, we'll say, labour and things than it used to take. So we could restart the leather industry, just provided that we manage to solve energy production first. So there's an awful lot of stuff that we can do, but to make Ireland much more attractive to the north, but also obviously just for its own aims, in order to have a better standard of living for everyone else. And we don't really need to interfere with the tertiary economy of places like Dublin. They can still have their office jobs and they can still work in tech, but we can bring a whole heap of industry to the rest of the country. And if it's done in a regional way with things that suit the different regions, like, for example, we'll take Connacht. Connacht doesn't have an awful lot of arable land. Connacht is good for grazing, is good for nature, is good for forestry, and one major thing would actually be the seaweed industry. And I've done an awful lot of research into seaweed. There's a whole heap we could be doing with that we haven't even touched on. That might take sending a few lads over to Japan to look at the seaweed farming over in Japan and bring them back and say, right, well, you set this up here. In Munster, then, we do have a bit more tillage, but it's still, we have coastal, we have, we've fish and good farmland, but we also have good farmland as well. Like, basically, in tillage to seaweed, you'd have Munster in between Leinster and Connacht with regards to what we can produce. Munster's actually a very good place, because we kind of have everything. We've a little bit of tillage, we've a little bit, we've a good lot of grazing, we've a good lot of sea access. So Munster is actually kind of probably out of those three counties in what is now the Republic kind of best placed. Actually, Munster and Ulster would be very similar, it's just Munster slightly warmer. So Leinster then has an awful lot of tillage. They can grow an awful lot more cash crops and things like that, because A, it's warmer again than Munster, it's drier. The land type is better, so we can produce enough. So essentially we could actually come to national self-sufficiency, everyone having jobs in their own areas, and we can actually encourage, we'll say, the cultural revival of more regional cultures. And we can let people be self-determining on a smaller scale than in a massive, national scale. We can do that as well at a massive national scale, but we can devolve more powers to counties and to provinces. No. You there, Roger, or are you still dealing with kids? I'd say still dealing with kids. Now, I'll move on to the 7 signatories of the proclamation. You had Eamon Kent, who was born in Galway in 1881, and prior to the Rising, Kent was an employee of the Dublin Corporation. He was a co-founder of the Irish Volunteers, partaking in the successful Howth gun-running operation of 1914. His involvement in Republican activities was complemented by his interest in Irish culture, specifically Irish language and history, although he was also an accomplished uilleann piper. As the commander of the 4th Battalion of the Irish Volunteers during the Rising, he took possession of the South Dublin Union, the precursor to the modern-day St. James's Hospital. He was executed on the 8th of May 1916. Now, Eamon Kent was an interesting figure. Some people would say that he was gay. I'm going to kind of not say a whole pile about that, but it is interesting that there was actually a bit of an element of, diverse kind of identities within the signatories and the leaders of the Rising. And, they focus on equality and just being friends with each other and fighting for the one thing, transcended all of that. So, another thing now that, with regards to Eamon Kent, is it is actually very important with regards to decolonisation to get involved in the culture. Eamon Kent, he was an accomplished Irish speaker, and he was also an uilleann piper. Now, some people put an awful lot of focus on the Irish speaking. Not all of us are too good at languages, but there is other things you can do. You can get involved in music, and you can get involved in you can get involved in general cultural things. Oh, you're back, Roger, are you?
I am, yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I got myself a little bottle of beer and all. Happens, Larry.
Good man. Don't say that too loud, they'll put an 18 age limit in us here.
Do you know, they probably would, the fuckers. Jesus Christ. Were you there the time I had a piece of chalk in my mouth? And they thought I was consuming
sure we were in the middle of a debate, next thing
Oh, wasn't that priceless?
Oh, stop. But, do you want to say there, Roger, about what we were saying?
You were going over, I just went inside, but what was, last I heard you were talking about Eamon Kent being an uilleann pipe player, was it?
Yeah. And about, basically about it, an important part of decolonisation is resurrecting our culture. Because at the time, yeah, because at the time...
But you know what, actually, sorry, industrialisation, that's the interesting one. It's like industrialisation made shite of countries whilst making them wealthy. So it's how do we do it and, avoid the worst? Yeah, you're basically... You're raiding your own piggy bank of natural resources. So it's in a way, it's good that we didn't, because we still have our powder dry, as it were. But it's when you think of, what's his name? Eamon Ryan, trying to get the old lithium mining in the Wicklow Mountains and stuff.
I wouldn't be for that kind of thing at all, but it's lucky we didn't at the time, because now we still have an environment. Because what I'll be talking about is more along the lines of eco-manufacturing. There's very few things that you can't manufacture out of, we'll say, renewable resources, or in the case of, say, things like metals and that, like for example, I think I've said it a few times, that we're at a stage now where a ton of old phones yields more gold than a ton of ore.
Wow.
So, like there's an awful lot of things like that, and now at the moment, just because of cheapness and colonialism, they're throwing all that out to Africa for poor African children to be picking through and picking up disease, picking up contamination off of it. But actually, technically, there is actually the the technology and the machinery there that could be done for not that much dearer in a place like Ireland safely and to environmental standards. The refining of metals back out of technology and metal in general. So that's one thing. The other thing then is like, for example, we could have a full bioplastics industry. I was talking about that the other night, to
Yeah.
So there's with bioplastics and with fibers, there's very little that you can't actually make. Other than metals, with bioplastics and fibers, you've everything else covered. So our only concern then is, and the only place that we need to go to recycling for is for the metals. And as I said to you before, like as I was talking the other night, Jay does have contact with a fella who has a method. He's actually got it patented and all now, a method to turn plastic into petrol. So if we're replacing the plastics that we have with with bioplastics, and we're using the plastic that's here as petrol until such time as we can transition to something else, we're cleaning our environment while we're industrializing. So that's a major thing, and as I've said to you before, like I have a big focus on making our agriculture more diverse and more sustainable. So like what I'd be talking about now would be, right, you have an awful lot of industry in Europe and in China and places, and it's all traditional heavy industry that's very polluting. But there is a market, and there's no one else really doing it. No one else, bar us, I think globally, has thought of becoming an eco-manufacturing hub, of actually industrialising from the ground up, but based on production of things that are environmentally sustainable, both for home use and export. So,
Yeah, I think just on that topic, Jesus, it's like the thing that's terrifying me personally at the minute is the amount of cancer that's about to place. So I think there's like an opportunity from a sort of electioneering standpoint. There's no party, like, it's very easy to distance or feel disassociated from green policies, because of course the only ones that get through are the ones that tickle the bottom line the right way. But it's like, if we were to go about it from a standpoint of like getting rid of all toxicity, all sort of carcinogenic, even hypothetical stuff.
Yeah.
And as we were talking about in the conversation on the Roots chat, like to be able to sort of set out like an extreme end game, but you don't have to be, because people are afraid of sort of radical ideas and stuff. But if it's like, this is the goal is fucking zero plastic, because it's toxic to humans, because of all of the because it's bad for the planet and stuff. So it's like you state your goal, and it's like you're doing all of the right stuff, but it's like it'll make Ireland sort of cutting edge when it comes to sort of resisting the kind of toxicity of basically human civilization, really. And we can be cutting edge with that. We could have our universities doing it, and I think people would really get behind that, because it's coming from a standpoint of, like, we're all afraid of the like, I mean, where's all the autism coming from? Where's all the cancer coming from? We know we've made the world a toxic soup for ourselves. So it's like, it will be a phenomenal advantage to be a political party that stands against that. That the environmentalism is a kind of a humanist thing, in that we're trying to protect people. I think that's a really, really powerful way to sort of get people behind the movement,
No, it is, and like, I mean, like, one issue that people have is, they always say, and then where else has done this? Does anywhere else have had to have done this? We can be at the forefront of all this. Like, there's different places that have done different things. Like, for example, Switzerland, over 50% of their gas is now coming from biogas. You've other places then that do an awful lot with regards to plastic recycling. You've that fellow over in America now who has that machine made for turning plastic into petrol. You've people all around the world doing lots of different things, and we could actually kind of make a plan and bring all of them here together and just essentially make a full out system and say it, and we can even say to other countries here, if you want the same as us here, lads, we can sort it out for you. Essentially become like a contracting kit outs for other countries for this kind of stuff when we'd have it set up ourselves. So, and that would help an awful lot of people as well.
Yeah, and it's something people would get behind,
I mean, it is. Yeah. No. But yeah. I suppose I'll go on to Thomas Clark now, will I?
Yep.
Right. Thomas Clark, born on the Isle of Wight in 1857, Clark's father was a soldier in the British Army. During his time in America as a young man, he joined Clan na Gael, and later enduring 15 years of penal servitude for his role in a bombing campaign in London, 1883 to 1898. In 1907, having returned from a second sojourn in America, his links with Clan na Gael in America fastened his importance to the revolutionary movement in Ireland. He held the post of treasurer to the Irish Republican Brotherhood. Of independence through deference to his seniority. Clark was the group that occupied the GPO. He was executed on the 3rd of May 1916. Now, the interesting thing as well that not an awful lot of people know about the situation with Thomas Clark, the reason why he's the first signatory is actually because if they actually succeeded, they wanted him as president of the provisional government. So, but again, just going through these things that we can learn from it, he did a great service to Ireland and to Ireland's independence. But he was the son of a soldier in the British Army. I mean, people can get too ethnic about things, and people can get too backgroundy about things. But at the end of the day, what really matters with regards to people is it doesn't really matter where people came from. If they're willing to go to the right side and if they're willing to back what's right, it doesn't matter where they came from. It doesn't matter what their identity was. It doesn't matter what their background was. So long as a person is a decent person and sees justice and what needs to be done. Now, we'll go on to our main man, James Connolly. Born in Edinburgh in 1868, Connolly was first introduced to Ireland as a member of the British Army. Despite returning to Scotland, the strong Irish presence in Edinburgh stimulated Connolly's growing interest in Irish politics. In the mid-1890s, leading to his immigration to Dublin in 1896, where he founded the Irish Socialist Republican Party. He spent much of the first decade of the 20th century in America. He returned to Ireland to campaign for workers' rights with James Larkin. A firm believer in the perils of sectarian division, Connolly campaigned tirelessly against religious bigotry. In 1913, Connolly was one of the founders of the Irish Citizen Army. During the Easter Rising, he was appointed Commandant General of the Dublin Forces, leading the group that occupied the General Post Office. Unable to stand during his execution due to wounds received during the Rising, Connolly was executed while sitting down on the 12th of May 1916. He was the last of the leaders to be executed. Now, Connolly is kind of our main man, as is Larkin, politically within the party. But again, much like Thomas Clark, whose father was in the British Army, James Connolly himself was in the British Army. So again, like I said earlier, it doesn't really matter what you've done in the past as such much, and it doesn't really matter so long as you are willing to go into the future, in a view of justice and in a view of equality of people. That stands for an awful lot more than your background or your history. Now, another interesting thing about James Connolly, I think it was in 1906, He was one of the founding members of the IWW over in America, which was actually, the start of we'll say, integrated trade unionism in America, as well as having founded the ITGWU with James Larkin. So, you can't really go further looking for essentially a hero to follow as James Connolly. And another thing about him being a tireless campaigner against religious bigotry, he himself was actually a Catholic. He wasn't one of these edgy atheist socialists that kind of came in with Marxism-Leninism. Even though he was a religious person himself, you can be religious, you can be irreligious, you can believe in one faith or another. What you have to understand is that is what is important is what unifies us, and what unifies us is our humanity. So, and this is another thing. He was in the British Army, and he was going campaigning against sectarianism. And he was later, one of the main leaders of us, attempting to get our freedom in 1916. So there's a very interesting kind of duality there, because, and what it means as well is it's a good example of how people who have complex identities with regard Ireland, how they can transcend that and come and become part of us, so, as united Irish people. That even if identities are complex, that's still allowed. Have you anything to say there, Roger? Roger was probably dealing with kids again. Sean, yeah.
You're
Go on anyway. Hello?
saying there, kind of joining the cause. It obviously doesn't matter what ethnicity or what race you are. It's fucking, all comers. Everyone who's got the right mindset, sure, aren't they welcome? That's a good message.
Yeah. Now, with regards to Sean McDermott, born in 1884 in Leitrim, McDermott immigrated to Glasgow in 1900 and from there to Belfast in 1902. A member of the Gaelic League, he was acquainted with Bulmer Hobson. He joined the Irish Republican Brotherhood in 1906 while still in Belfast, later transferring to Dublin in 1908, where he assumed managerial responsibility for the IRB newspaper, Irish Freedom, in 1910. Although McDermott was affected with polio in 1912, he was appointed as a member of the Provisional Committee of the Irish Volunteers from 1913 and was subsequently drafted into the Military Committee of the IRB. In 1915, during the Rising, McDermott served in the GPO. He was executed on the 12th of May 1916. So, if you're to look at that, with regards to Sean McDermott, again, he was another person who he had been abroad and, came back, but as well as that, he was affected with polio. So even though he had things in his health and things against him, that still didn't stop him from fighting for, what was right and what was important with regards to, Irish freedom and the cause of the Irish people. Whereas at times it's very easy to kind of sit down and think, well, God, there's this much wrong with me now. I'm not going to be able to do nothing. I'm not going to be able to, contribute anything here. I'm not well enough, or I have disabilities or whatever else. Have you? Sean McDermott was a survivor of polio. You can't really get that much more disabled than that and still be walking. No. Thomas McDonagh. A native of Tipperary, born in 1878, McDonagh spent the early part of his career as a teacher. He moved to Dublin to study and was the first teacher on the staff at St. Inda's, the school he helped found with Pádraig Pearse. McDonagh was well versed in literature, and his enthusiasm and erudition earning him a position in the English department at the University College Dublin. His play When the Dawn Is Come was produced at the Abbey Theatre. He was appointed Director of Training for the Irish Volunteers in 1914, later joined the later joined the IRB. MacDonagh was appointed to the IRB military committee in 1916. He was commander of the 2nd Battalion of Volunteers that occupied Jacob's Biscuit Factory and surrounding houses during the Rising. He was executed on the 3rd of May 1916. So again, there's another person for some people. Like, he was a teacher, an educated man, Joe bit into theatre and that, and he still found, things that he could do that was valuable to the cause of the Irish people and the cause of Irish independence. There's too much kind of look at things as being a oh yeah, no, you can't do nothing if you're not this big macho man type thing. But anyone can contribute. And even outside of, we'll say, armed resistance, like, there's an awful lot that people there who might think that they're not able to contribute can do. Like, I mean, he how many people has he taught? How many people have learned off him, either as a school teacher in County Tipperary or in University College Dublin, that went on to do great things for the country of Ireland and the Irish people? Pádraig Pearse. Pádraig Pearse. Pearse was born in Dublin in 1879, becoming interested in Irish cultural matters in his teenage years. In 1898, Pearse became a member of the executive committee of the Gaelic League. He graduated from the Royal University in 1901 with a degree in arts and law. Pearse's literary output was constant, and he published extensively in both Irish and English, becoming the editor of An Lleidyr Solace, the newspaper of the Gaelic League. He was a keen believer in the value of education and established 2 schools, Colashta Éanna and Colashta Ida, devoted to the education of Irish children through the Irish language. One of the founder members of the Irish Volunteers and the author of the Proclamation of Independence. Pearse was present in the GPO during the Rising and was Commander-in-Chief of the Irish Forces. He was executed on the 3rd of May 1916. Now, Pearse is an interesting legacy, because, right, first of all, he was, very big into, we'll say, cultural revival and that. And an awful lot of people who would be very exclusionary to other people, kind of, you'll often see them going around with Pádraig Pearse above in their pictures, on their profiles, and things like that. But, like, he was an educated man who had been to university, and as well as that, he was a signatory of a document that enshrined the equality of all, regardless of background or identity, in which was the proclamation on which the fight for this country was formed. And he might have been a bit more conservative than some of the rest of them, but still, at the same time, that did not stop him fighting for the cause of equality of the Irish people, and it did not stop him from fighting alongside people who would have been an awful lot more, say, progressive than his own views. Now, Joseph Mary Plunkett, born in 1887 in Dublin, son of a papal count, Plunkett was initially educated in England, though he returned to Ireland and graduated from UCD. In 1909, after his graduation, Plunkett spent 2 years travelling due to ill health, returning to Dublin in 1911. Plunkett shared MacDonagh's enthusiasm for literature and was an editor of the Irish Review, along with MacDonagh and Edward Martin. He helped to establish an Irish National Theatre. He joined the Irish Volunteers in 1913, subsequently gaining membership of the IRB. In 1914, Plunkett travelled to Germany to meet Roger Casement. In 1915, during the planning of the Rising, Plunkett was appointed Director of Military Operations with overall responsibility for military strategy. Plunkett was one of those who were stationed in the GPO during the Rising. He married Grace Gifford while in Kilmainham jail following the surrender, and was executed on the 4th of May 1916. Now, well, with regards to Joseph Plunkett, like, we all know the song, Grace, just hold me in your arms. Do you know that one? I can't sing, so I'm not going to go further than that with it. But, like, he was a again, an educated man who had also had, ill health, and he was still able to fight for Ireland, and he was still able to fight for the cause of the Irish people, even through arms. And people are not being asked now to go to arms at all. Like, anyone, again, this is another thing of anyone who thinks that they can't do something for Ireland, I can't do something for equality and freedom of the Irish people, are wrong. There's an awful lot that you can do, even outside of that. Again, as I said earlier in this, I'm a pacifist, and I still admire people who, sacrifice themselves for this country. But there's people with ill health, and, people who would be, a bit literary and whatever. So they went out and they fought and they died for this country. So what's stopping you now from getting involved in a community thing and trying to set up a better future for this country? No, that's the 7 signatories anyway. Roger, do you want to say anything?
I suppose they got interested with Paul Pierce and how he's been kind of appropriated by, the headers on the right. Like, suppose that's down to the sort of his Catholicism. But like you said, it's nonsense really, because at the end of the day, if you were a sort of, what would you say, a proper conservative right-wing type in those days of the early 20th century, like, you'd have been for the British establishment. You think of like the Irish Times at the time, they wrote a letter giving out, that's actually 37 or at the time of the Constitution, like, they were annoyed about that because it didn't show or even mention the British. So there was very much the normal position, the centrist position back then was right of Pádraig Pearse. So the idea that Pádraig Pearse is an icon of sort of Irish nationalism and that kind of ethno-nationalism is complete fucking nonsense, in my opinion, and should be stomped on any chance we get. Any time you see them quoting Pádraig Pearse, it's like, go for them. That's a reasonable, simple piece of activism. To challenge that,
Yeah.
like.
But I mean, like, if you think of it now, you see all them young lads going around with Pádraig Pearse in their profile pictures, right? I am more or less exactly where Connolly and Larkin were politically at the time. Could you imagine them if I said, right lads, we're going to take Dublin? Can you imagine any of them following and coming along with me? And that'll tell you about all you need to know about the situation. Like, Pádraig Pearse would have been terrified by him. I personally think, anyway.
Yeah. It's funny how when you look at what 1879 you said. So what age was he? He was 34, 35 when he died, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, never mind.
But, like, he, even though, like, they would have said, over him being Catholic, he'd have been a bit, conservative or whatever. Like, I mean, he's still at a time when even the vague idea of a woman being entitled to vote, he signed a document there as one of the main signatories that guaranteed universal suffrage.
There you go.
Like, I mean, that's, and guaranteed the equality of all people at a time, like, if he was really that much of a, we'll say, theocratic religious figure, sure, there's no way in hell he would have signed that document.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a radical in his time, actually. If you were to kind of tally up all of his views, definitely outside of normality and definitely on the sort of liberal left end of the spectrum, for sure.
Personally, like, I'd actually put him somewhere on the side with the Social Democrats or Labour if he was around today. We'll say a bit socially progressive, but sure, we're not sure about everything else.
Yeah. And as well, look at her. At the end of the day, it's like someone might have a whole load of conservative views, but in a kind of passive way, where they'll vote that way and they'll drag their feet when there's gay marriage mentioned and all of that sort of stuff. But, like, when things really matter, when you consider how we're being exploited by multinational companies and by the sort of, I hate to use the word, but, like, basically the capitalist system, it's designed to just milk any value they can out of us. It's like when someone, that's the thing that I think can not make people militant, but actually react, actually be political, you know. And so it's like you could find someone who's completely conservative, but they will actually fight for anarcho-syndicalist causes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Or even just sort of
yeah,
vaguely socialist causes. Like people will fight so that their kids get free education. We know that, right? And some of those people will be arch conservatives, theocratic, whatever way you want to put it, like just holy joes. But they'll actually, what really matters to people are, they're the things on the fucking left side of things. Do you know?
yeah.
And I'm thinking of that as well because of in the chat. What was your one's name? I read the bit of dialogue you
Oh,
had yesterday evening because she meant well, but it's like they're also focused on immigration and gender stuff. That's
yeah.
what seems to make everybody just wants to. They all want to get to that. That's the thing that terrifies them. Um, so it's really it's important for this kind of Irish anarcho movement
Yeah.
to get on to find a position that is valuable to us and is actually the right position. You know what I mean? Because that's where the votes are going to come. Because nobody feels like they're getting their say in this. Do you know?
No,
Getting
like
their head
even
around
with
normal people.
yeah, even with regards to Lane, like she needn't have ran off. Like we could have had that discussion out. Like it was an interesting discussion. To be honest with you, Joe, it was enjoyable. Like, but like the thing about it is that like people have to be able to accept the fact of other people's right to exist. And if people can accept the fact of other people's right to exist and to be equal human beings with the rest of us, we can get through almost anything.
We're a common
That's
believer,
kind
aren't
of
they? I didn't see her say anything particularly. I mean, she basically sort of was almost outing herself as, I might be far right. I don't know if I'm far right or not. But she didn't actually
yeah.
say anything particularly nasty. She
She
said
didn't. I
she's
think
afraid of mass immigration and she's against sort of, I suppose, transgender stuff in schools and in prisons. And I think those are normal people. A lot of people feel like that. A lot of
well,
people either don't understand it or just knee jerk reaction is keep that shit out of Ireland. They don't want to be part of the culture war and stuff. Um,
yeah.
and then the our media calls that far right, and even our peers, me and you, our peers, will call that far right. That's not far right. That's just small minded.
It's
You
been a bit
know.
uneducated, really. And and I mean, like what you call it, like just the sheer panic of I'm going to say all this and I'm going to run because I'm expecting to be it. Sure, that
Yeah, she
achieves
said
you.
nothing particularly bad. No one would have met her. You just chatter like.
Yeah. But like even there today, I got this one there who was going on about separately now. I've had it now for a few days. I think they're finding it kind of hard to pin us down with regards to
Mm.
that kind of stuff. I actually wrote a thing clarifying the position that we are not getting involved in it because of this the safety of various members. Because like we're all in we don't have the luxury of college campus stuff. We're inside in rural areas and disadvantaged areas.
Mm.
So like we're not going to be out in anyone. And like there's a couple of concerns that we have with it, like, and other than that, like we just essentially we don't want to really be engaged in the political aesthetics war. So like I mean that's a major thing. Like we do support people of various, we'll say, identities, but essentially like there's no point in coming on shouting to us about different things like we'll identify we'll defend people when we see them being attacked. But overall, we're more focused on things like rural development, we'll say workers' rights and that kind of thing.
But I
But
suppose the
what
question
was I going to
becomes
say?
though,
But
if you were to come up with, if you were to come up with it, like how, if you consider someone like Elaine, right? The reason she cares about politics is because she's afraid of immigration and she's afraid of identity politics. Now she wouldn't characterize it as fear, but in fairness, that's pretty much what it is. Um, how would you recruit someone like that? Because, like you said, there's lots of people who are kind of peeping in at what the Roots Party are doing, and they're like, oh, this sounds really good, but they're like, they won't come on side unless they know what you think about identity politics and what you think about immigration, because that's what they're panicking about. So is there a way to recruit those people and also educate them not to be so fucking scared?
well,
I
the
suppose,
major
you know.
Your political education is really the major thing. Like, I mean, they're going around there now. There's people haven't convinced that 25. Now, I swear to God, now these are statistics that have been quoted to me. There's people convinced that 40% of young people are now, trans or what have you. They think that 25% of about a quarter of the population is now Muslim, and that we will be a minority in 10 years. So this is nonsense that's going through all of there, and that sounds terrifying, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, what is the truth is, for example, amongst like we'll say, gay people account for between 4 and 8% of the population, and in a sample size of the overall gay LGBT people, trans people are only 12.5% of LGBT people, which puts them at way less than 1% of the population is one thing. The other thing then with regards to Islam and that, I'm not really sure on religious figures, but we'll take it racially, because this really racially is the real thing of right there. Only something like 3% of our population is anything other than white. That includes Asian, black people, anything else. So I mean, that's a big difference from 25%. So I mean, like, what they're being informed on is completely wrong. The other thing then that needs to be
they won't believe you. They won't believe you, April. That's it. If you say that stuff, they won't believe you, and they will decide you are the enemy instantly. Do you know what I mean? They'll be like, right, April is out. I'm out. I'm not interested in narco-syndicalism. I'm not interested in the roots. If you are not talking heavy on immigration, those people are gone. And maybe for the better. But I don't know. I think they're not as far right as the media have us believe.
No. Well, you see, the thing about it is they've two choices now. Yeah. With regards to us now, we are going for what we see needs to be done with the country. And after that, they can either take us or leave us. Because the thing about it is that, like, we don't really need to win an election. All that we need is to get enough like-minded people to start setting up things. So therefore, if George just got here saying that the sad thing is that they'll tell you those are media numbers and lies. And see, this is genuinely an issue. And part of that is the need to realise that A, they're being lied to themselves, and B, they are actually literally just puppets of the Brits and the Yanks at this point. So maybe we could actually turn some of their conspiracy stuff back in themselves, because we actually have conspiracy fact in the fact that the Brits and the Yanks, that they're puppets of the Brits and the Yanks. Whereas, like, for example, us, the biggest thing behind us is, if I throw 50 quid in for printing every number of weeks. So that's, do you know what I mean? So that's kind of the main difference. And this is part of the reason why it's hard for us to compete, with this, because we don't have funding. We flat out don't have funding. Not one of us in the main party have a bob. And and we have no backers. And actually, we never will have backers as such, because it's kind of within our internal rules not to accept money from business. So that's a major issue. Now there are other issues, obviously, but largely, if you can convince one, they'll convince five. That's essentially it. If you can show one, that there is alternatives there to both the system that we have and most of the systems that are being proposed, which no one likes, it will grow. It might take a bit of time, but it'll grow. And I can't think of who said it, but history will vindicate us. But that's it anyway. That's kind of my view on it. You there, Roger?
I am indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking. It's the hot button issue.
It is the hot button issue. But, like, for as long as we're keeping out there and we're saying what we're saying, like, the thing about it is at the same time, we can't really allow them to throw for example, gay people under the bus. Because gay people are doing nothing, only going around living their lives being gay, or, and doing whatever it is they do. And
but yourself, the Elaines of the world, those people, they're not against the gayness. Maybe they'd be the people dragging their feet now when they'd be voting whether they can marry or not. But they wouldn't be. You know what I mean? I'm sure if you asked that Elaine one, she'd be like, "Oh, I don't mind people being gay," and blah blah blah. Blah. You know what I mean? That's the.
Yeah, but you see,
they're not necessarily homophobic. They are transphobic. Absolutely.
But again, there again, like, I mean, it's down to, like, if you want absolute individual freedom, well, the cost of that is that everyone else has absolute individual freedom as well.
Mm.
And that's the thing that people need to reconcile with themselves. Because if someone is, there and, okay, you decide, right, well, it's my body, my choice, I'm going to get 40 tattoos. Well, it's someone else's body, their choice, if they want to do anything else with their body, including if they want to go from someone who was originally a man into someone who is now a woman, or vice versa. It's entirely
Oh,
an issue.
what about this is a hard one now, April, and obviously just say we need to think about it more. But what your attitude like hormone therapy
Yeah.
before the age of 18? Like it's a human right to be allowed. What do you think about that?
I'd be against that because sure we don't let kids get. Hello Anna, how are you? This is my friend Anna. She's in Limerick. She's a good old friend of mine. We've been the best of pals since we met on a course when I was 17. But basically anyway, no, with regards to hormones under the age, I would not agree with hormones under the age of 18. Like,
Mm.
we don't let people who are under the age of 18 consent to any elective thing, without at least parental consent. And even, even with parental consent, I don't think they're allowed to get tattoos of that.
Yeah. See, what they'd say to you though is that like you're putting them at a suicide risk. It's a fucking. Do you know what I mean? They'll go hard on something like that.
Yeah, but you're still at the same time. There's a whole heap of medications that can't be given by law to people who are under 18, and that would put them at a suicide risk. Sure, I was on antidepressants as a teenager. There was an awful lot of different things I could, that they couldn't try out on me until I hit 18. Like, I was on Prozac for years, which didn't really suit me. And until I turned 18, they tried me on a couple of different things, and they actually got something that suited me after I was 18. But it didn't matter the fact I was a suicide risk. Because it wasn't approved for under 18s, I had to stay on Prozac until I turned 18.
Yeah, I agree with you. I completely agree with you. I'm just trying to think what would the devil's advocate points be, because they go hard on that. There's
I
people that would completely rule you out for that now as well. They'd be like, you can't. No, this is a human right. We need access to hormone therapy.
Well, I mean, sure, it's a human right, but I don't. I mean, obviously, I don't
Is
see
it
any. Look, I don't see any issue with people, say, for example, socially transition, whatever age they like. But we don't
though?
want, people who are, in the eyes of in the eyes of society, children making serious life altering decisions. It's the same reason that you wouldn't be allowed to bring a child to an extreme body modification shop. Like, there are people who have issues where they think that, body dysmorphic kind of issues in every other kind of sense, and still not, nothing can be done with them till they're over 18. You have an awful lot of girls who are kind of half suicidal because their boobs never came in, for example, and they're not allowed to go away and get a boob job.
Yeah, makes sense.
So
Makes
I
sense.
mean, like, they can have and do whatever the hell it is they like. They just have to wait until they're adults, and we can be sure that they're not making a silly mistake. That like, I mean, kids often believe, like, if the trans stuff was popular when I was a child, I might have believed I was trans just because of the fact that I didn't get on with, with the way I was being treated as a girl, and I was an absolute.
Absolutely, April. I'm with you 100%. Yeah, it's like it's a look now. There could be someone who's trans who feels offended by this. This is not meant in any sort of offensive way, but it's like I feel like it has the same vibe as the kind of subculture, counterculture that I was into in school and stuff. So I know well it wasn't really part of the public consciousness at the time, but if it had been, it would have been my group of friends. It would have been, do you know what I mean? The sort of, what would you say, alternative crowd, the counterculture. It's a countercultural movement, like so.
I just
Yeah,
want to answer Patricia there. She's saying consultants prescribe them when children reach We're not talking about puberty blockers right now. I know that there is people who do, like, they're actually, well, obviously they're puberty blockers. They were created for use in children who reach what you call a puberty too early. What we're talking about is the actual hormones, because there is actually an awful lot of people who want people starting estrogen or testosterone whenever the hell they feel like. I mean, even that, to be honest with you, that's technically even dangerous during, we'll say, the kind of pubertal era. But, just from a standpoint of, the doctor would want to be, it would want to be in a consultant, it would be want to be in a consultant endocrinologist for a start. But
Oh yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Any kind of hormone therapy is if you've got any sort of autoimmune issues or underlying stuff, even as an adult, like men do be taking testosterone to try and hold on to stuff. But there's negatives to it. There's risks you're taking. You're fucking with your immune system, really.
Yeah, but just what you call it, Patricia. I don't think it's contagion, and I think it should be up to the parents slash person and doctors up to 18. Collective. It's only with parental consent from 16 to 18. With anything else, if it's elective, they don't want kids doing it under the age of 16 at least. Even now, for example, there was someone I knew who got their ears pinned back when they were in their teens, and they had to go, where was it, Poland or somewhere for that. So I mean, like, overall, it's hard to know what to do there, because the thing of it is okay, there is risks of people being, for like, there is like, okay, overall this identity stuff is actually very, very difficult. um yeah, and it's very difficult to know what to do, and like, overall we largely don't comment on it because we don't have, very many trans people around us, and it's hard to know what to do for people, who are outside of the, who are outside of the mainstream, with their sexualities and genders. It's difficult enough to know what to do. So we largely don't comment on it usually. But it's just, as Roger brought up, there was a woman in our chat, the open chat where anyone can talk to us, who kind of went off on a bit of one about trans people, just kind of out of nowhere, just by me saying to someone else who would come in, yeah, the trans people are welcome. So, like, I mean, we don't really mind either way. Um,
Yeah, that's the fucking anarchist way. Why would you be bothered? If people want to, people do. People should be allowed to do whatever the hell they want, so long as they're not hurting anyone. And it's
yeah,
as simple as that.
yeah, kind of a case of do what you like so long as you're consenting adult.
Yes.
Also, the era will rise, fella. Would you please stop saying what going on with the, because it's making it hard for me to read messages, and I am already a Roman Catholic, so I don't know who you think you're converting here. Patricia here, absolutely, it's tricky, but no need to make it a culture war, which is what they're doing, and that is exactly it. You see, the culture war thing is what we don't really want to be involved in that. We recognise that everyone should be equal, everyone should have equal status, equal sovereignty over themselves, and be able to do whatever it is that they like with themselves. Um, you know, we don't really see the need to have an enormous culture war about things. So, like, the culture war only kind of fuels the stuff that they're going on with. Um, like, we have dozens and thousands and hundreds of different crises going on in Ireland and around the world now at this point. There's a whole heap that needs to be done with this country, and we'll say, issues of people's own private lives, regardless of who you're talking about, is largely none of our business. It's like, what I find funny is that, there's an awful lot of people here who view themselves as, for example, they'd be saying, oh yeah, no, I'm anti-state control over my choices and whatever else have you. But you try and talk about say, a woman's body, or an LGBT person's body, or whatever else have you, and they certainly start losing their hair and want to get it regulated. Like, overall, I don't really want anything that is a matter of personal choice or people's personal sovereignty being regulated by the government. It's no one's business, and if you want to, we'll say, live, for example, if we're talking about people who are religiously conservative, if you want to live biblically, go back to the whole Amish thing somewhere, take no vaccines, do whatever. I support you in that. Do whatever the hell you like, but also, someone who's here who wants to do whatever they're doing, that's also their own decision and business. It's not ours to regulate or to, I mean, it's not like we can choose to associate with whoever we want to associate with. That's the principle of free association. But with regards to what people want to do with themselves, that's entirely their own business. It's not ours. So I don't really see the need to make culture war type, we'll say, big statements about what people should and shouldn't be doing with themselves. Because it's not anyone else's business. What you do with yourself, so long as it doesn't harm anyone else, is not the business of anyone else. And in order to have a free, equal, and unified society, people need to start keeping their nose inside their own side of the ditch. That's basically it.
Yeah, big time agree with that. It's like it'd be nice to imagine Ireland as a place where people could come and experiment with different models of like with different social systems. So, like, let's say we could. I'm talking pie in the sky here, but like you could give a grant to people to go and try and work on a specific kind of hippie commune somewhere. You know what I mean? Somewhere that's sort of give them feckin' 40 acres from the state and let them take a lease on it or let them have it for a certain amount of years to experiment with a society without smartphones or, without some element of technology. Let them be Amish. Let them be a bit of a cult. Now, we'd have to kind of keep an eye on it and make sure there's nothing too crazy going on. But I think that's, because we actually do need to experiment with different forms. Like, we don't realize how bad these phones and this social media is affecting us. And not only that, but lots of stuff, you know? So I love the idea of experimenting with different societal structures and let them see what works and what doesn't and stuff. Because nobody can do that. Straight away the state is in. It's Waco. Fucking shut this shit down, like.
Yeah, like, I mean, okay, there should always be, we'll say, some level of protection. For example, especially whenever you have women and children, because novelty these cults end up becoming a bit pedo-y.
Yeah.
But, like, what you call it, there should be oversight with regards to protection of, vulnerable people within anything like that. But overall, if someone wants to decide, right, well, I'm going to declare myself, uh, Colonel Paddy, of we'll say fake Libya above in Sligo somewhere. That's fine. Like they should be allowed to do that if so long as
And it should be like, oh God Almighty, we should be nearly trying to negotiate with what how could we observe? Give us reports. We want to know how it's going. This is real social science, real anthropology. Set people out in a fucking field in Mayo and see how they get on. Look after them. If they get hungry or hurt, or if, and as you said, women or children, any weird shit going on, we'd have to step in. But if it's been done under the most liberal anarchist principles we can give them, I think that's a fucking class idea. People would love that.
yeah. No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we've enough cults. We do actually have enough cults already, but to be honest with you,
More
people.
cults. More cults.
Yeah.
There's the only thing wrong with a cult is when you don't like it. If you don't like it, it's a cult. If it's good, then sure.
The thing about cults as well is like you can't really stop people from doing from either A, following some religious thing that they have, or B, from farming. Like, essentially, we're herd or pack animals. We're always going to end up looking for a tribe. Now, I do actually think that under a system like what we'd be talking about, there would be an awful lot less cult type stuff. Because, for example, you would be giving people their community as a tribe. So basically, you'd be fostering better, stronger communities. So therefore, there wouldn't be the same need, because the people who join cults are usually, lost loners who long for, interpersonal connection and, a sense of belonging. So if you have that satisfied by society in general, you're not going to get very many cults. Like there was, yeah, no, that type of culture was destroyed on purpose, but kind of, to be honest with you, in a kind of slightly more modern way, we're kind of looking at getting back to that. So, like,
As we spoke about before, wouldn't it be great to do experiments with Brehon law structures and the sort of what we can figure out how that worked like.
yeah, and there's a fella now there, he's saying, or I'm not sure fella or lady, could be either, it's just I'm kind of going by the profile picture of a fellow with squiggly hair and is a date after it. But says Open Kulak for the protests is becoming its own conference stage. Which it is, like, I mean, these kind of things just happen organically, like, if you kind of get out of people's way, they'll build their own community. Now, the situation in Kulak is absolutely mad. But, you know, like under better circumstances and with less state kind of stuff. Yeah, no, look, listen, the thing about it is like, the thing about, we'll say, anarchism and that kind of thing done right is it's not without rules. Just made a thing here that I've heard of the likes of those communities and terrible things happen to their demise. Like, some people take it as being without rules, and then you get this, some will say, abusive narcissistic bollocks ends up head of it, and essentially he kind of has it, you know, it's a thing that often happens. Now, under an
Well, I
actual
suppose the
anarchist,
rules can be there, but the rules have to be by direct democracy, and they can never, you know what I mean? It's like they should always be challenged and stuff. So you only keep rules if they're essential for the structural integrity and just kind of safety of people. So it's like, so long as you understand what a rule is, because rules wind up supporting the status quo and supporting the kind of pyramid scheme that develops in human societies. So if you consider a rule to be just like just for stability and just so people don't get hurt, and then you can change them as you go. And I think that's Jesus, yeah, that's a winner for anarchism, isn't it?
I'm just going to stand slightly to the side, just because I want to smoke and it'll put down restriction. But just Maeve was saying there about Slab City and about Jodie taxing women, etc. there in Slab City. Now that is certainly an issue, but you see that again. That was more of a hippie commune. You see, in an actual, we'll say, directly administered anarchist commune, things are completely different. There's been a lot of them.
Well, that's it. If there's people stabbing people, that's it. Shut down. You know what I mean? That's fucking completely. That's, you know, you'd have to be hard. Anytime something goes like that, sure, look.
Yeah,
that's the end of it.
About is like you've this kind of esoteric hippie type thing of, oh yeah, no, we'll just believe in peace and love and do absolutely nothing and no kind of organization. And anyway, here's a rake of drugs I brought from South America, is kind of the hippie way of things. But like with regards to, we'll say, anarchist organization, with regards to communes and things, they are usually fairly well, you know, regimented within them. Everything will be done democratically, but everything would still be accounted for and organised. What you're talking about with regards to anarchism and specifically syndicalism is you're talking more like a big co-op, and you'll be talking co-op housing as well as co-op we'll say enterprise under the same thing in some places. In other places it would be just, you know, the co-op enterprise, and in other places it might be just the co-op housing. There's kind of lots of different ways about it. But the thing with it is it's not without rules. The structure is essentially that you have actually a structure of making kind of rules, but the thing about it is everyone is in power at the same time, so no one is. It's kind of direct democratic. Roger, did anyone else in the comments say anything else outside of your man talking about Jesus?
Oh, Jesus. The Lord Jesus Christ will save you. Sure, Jesus. There was a lot of anarchism to fucking the way Jesus was thinking about things. You know, the best parts. People saw, oh, Jesus was a socialist. No, he was more of an anarchist, I think.
Was, yeah. Like it's often said, like Jesus was the first anarchist, because, you know, everything was kind of, we'll say, you know, an awful lot of anarchists, just particularly ancoms, would say, no gods, no masters. In Jesus' case, it was no master but God. So that's just kind of really the only difference.
Have you been paying attention to the red heifer and what the sort of, what would you call it, fundamentalist Jews are planning? You might not have.
I heard about that, all right. The red heifer for the third temple, they've managed to breed that anyway. It had to be bred to some specifics, I can't think of what, and they've 3 of them now, and they're going sacrifice
4 or 5 maybe. And they've got like a bunch of priests also who've never touched anything dead. They've built a bloody altar. They've bought a piece of the Mountain of Olives. They've been digging under the temple that's there. Fucking Netanyahu had a meeting in under it about a year ago. Yeah. It's all fucking going down. This is the prophecy that's going to bring the Antichrist and all sorts of shit. It's fucking mad as bad cats.
Yeah. Well, sure, look, listen, the whole thing with the State of Israel was built off of the foot of both their carry-on and Christian Zionism. And what's hilarious about it is, sure, under the Christian Zionist view, of some of the fundamentalist Protestant sects in America and in England and places, sure, their belief is, the Jews have to build a third temple. But because the Jews aren't Christian, they're going to die a fiery death in the apocalypse. So we really need to convince them to build this temple. And essentially then that they'll be sacrificed and we'll get raptured, which is just pure nonsense. Like, I mean, when you look at some of the other, religions, it kind of almost makes Catholicism seem tame. But we'll
Yeah, well, that's in the current time, the level of it's actually evangelical sort of, I suppose you'd say, Zionists who bred the red heifers.
Oh, it was, yeah.
Some Texans.
Shot on.
And they probably were. Probably some of John Maloney's stock. No, a fellow with you used to breed shotguns. He exported like red shotguns to Texas.
Jesus, if you could manage to get a red heifer, that would be worth a few, Bob. Holy fuck.
God. Huh?
Probably get $500,000 for one of them.
Probably. And he had some lovely kind of ruby red shotguns that time.
Yeah, actually, they're beautiful looking calves, in fairness. I saw the pictures of them. Actually, full on red, like a kind of a real dark, ruddy sort of a red colour.
Highfield Lad was his bull. He was a lovely bull. I remember him when I was a child. He was that big. The one time he was going to the cow box and he just put one leg up in it and it shot off at the top.
Oh, jeez.
He used to have to put mattresses out in the shed for him to lie on. Because he was that big, he'd scarcely get up if he hadn't enough support.
Well looked after.
Well looked after. He was lovely. He was pure quiet, though.
Until they're not. Jesus, you never trust a bull. We've an Aberdeen Angus now, big fella, and he's getting real clever.
Yeah.
Still, he's calm, he's nice, and all the rest of it. But Jesus, when you're moving him, you have to be polite, like.
Oh yeah.
Go down the crush there now. I don't want to hit you. Go on now. You know.
Yeah. Oh, sure, I have a stallion like that at the back of my house. Oh, go away to hell. I have to keep him at the back of the house because I can't trust him to be nowhere else. And he's kind of like, you wouldn't know what humour he'd be in. He could love you or he could try taking a lump out of you. He could come up for pettings and head scratches or, next thing you'll see the lip moving and there could be a chunk taken out of you if you weren't careful.
Yeah, Jesus me, our lad got a good dart. We had, I can't remember the horse, but it was, he got a right chunk. The front foot took like a lump the size of your fist out of his arm.
Yeah.
Just kick that.
Yeah, that happened to my great-grandmother. My grandmother's people, they were carers. They used to take, the stone for the council, the milk for the creamery. And it was like heavy haulage before you trucks. And basically she used to go out every evening with the feed bags, and there was one mare who was, I think she was pregnant, the mare anyway was very anxious, and she went for the feed bag and missed and took a chunk out of her arm.
Jesus, yeah, bad dose. Horses are fucking dangerous now, you know.
Yeah. But anyway, I suppose we'll get back to what we were talking about. What have I missed here in the comments now? We went off on a bit of a one about livestock, which is one to happen, but it has to be done too.
The tangent was a red heifer. Yeah, started with the red heifer.
Red heifer, yeah. But basically, yeah. But back to the, like, it doesn't really matter what religion you are, kind of a thing. Like, everyone can work together. That's kind of a big thing. But it's kind of the overall oppressive fundamentalist ends of things that we have to kind of watch. And I think myself, with regards to religious freedom, and within the proclamation, it went on about religious freedom. The important part of religious freedom is everyone is entitled to their religion, but no one should be entitled to subjugate anyone else on behalf of their religion, and no one should be entitled to shove their religion down anyone else's throat. Because you see, like, for example, if you look at the whole Soviet era, they tried to make religion illegal, and what ended up happening, there was cults of personality and all sorts of nonsense. And, in other places, then you'd have bits of, kind of real mad, kind of, we'll say, pseudo-political occultism going on, and, kind of ridiculous stuff like that. So, like, I think it actually does more damage to actually bar, things like religion, than, thinking, oh yeah, we can all be equal if we get rid of religion. I don't think that's possible, really.
Yeah.
Like, freedom of
That's
religion
what
is
I'm trying
important.
for.
But, like, there's a kind of a thing of it. There's freedom of religion, but, there should also be freedom from religion. If someone wants to be atheist, they should be left alone at it. That's another thing with it.
In fact,
No,
I would say, I mean, not necessarily a default, but in terms of education and stuff,
yeah,
people should be taught about religions, but in a very sort of here's a bit of everything,
yeah.
to see the big picture, but kind of try and keep. I mean, you kind of need a bit of ethics and stuff, but the education system should definitely me. Oh, listen, of course, I know well you agree with this. It's like homeschooling should be encouraged and helped, and do you know what I mean? The state should be willing to send out materials for people to use in their own and like guidelines and like help if you need a fucking whiteboards and chalkboards for your kids, if you need specific textbooks and stuff, they'll be sent out to you. You can do your homeschooling.
Yeah, no, but this again, Patricia said could it not be yeah, obviously, absolutely practicing their own home. And, this is kind of on the touch of what Roger's saying about if people want to give, a purely religious education to their children, they should, they can do it homeschooled or, like if people want to set up a religious school, that's their own business as well. But like it shouldn't be, like everyone should be included with regards to, we'll say, mainstream state education. But also there's a kind of a thing of like I don't think that we should either force religion on people or force people not to display their religion in public, if you get me. Because you can get into that, there's kind of an oppressive secularism like you have in France, with them, essentially pulling the hijabs off of Muslim women and things like that. Or, kind of barring people who would be, from, for example, wearing a cross to work, or, a necklace or whatever else have you. That kind of thing can be oppressive too.
Yeah, it's a tricky balancing act. It's a tricky balancing act. 'Cause to look at it from the awkward angle, it's like, at what point do you react? At what point do you think, oh, Jesus, this is a horrible question, but it's worth thinking about. When you see, I don't know, something like, theocratic Sharia law appearing and in a brazen way, it's like finding the threshold at which you have to engage with a religious minority because they're doing something that's so against the anarcho-syndicalist utopia we're trying to create. It's like, that is a real hard one. And maybe it's not fair to ask you, but let's chat about it, I suppose.
It's kind of like anything else. There's a couple of basic principles, and one of them is if what you're doing isn't harming or, oppressing someone else, grand. If it is,
Where do you
kind of.
where do you draw that line? You think of something like Sharia law, you see a lot of people freaking out about that, like.
Well, I mean, things like Sharia law, like if they want, I mean, they shouldn't be allowed to impose. They would be imposing religious laws on someone else. No one should be allowed to impose religious laws on someone else. If they
What
want
if
to
it was
live
just for the
by
Muslims? The Muslims
if
were basically, or something like. I mean, obviously, genital mutilation and stuff is out, but it's like arranged marriages and stuff, like or polygamy. How would you deal with that, or what's your thoughts?
yeah. Well, for one thing now, and I just want to address Patricia's question there first. Isn't it harming though to be told that yours is the one true God, etc.? Yeah, but things like that, they shouldn't be allowed to be saying that to other people. If they want to say wear a cross or pray away in the quiet in their own space, they should be left alone to that. But if they want to make it anyone else's problem, they shouldn't be allowed to. Like, I mean, it's not creating any kind of an issue for it's not creating any kind of an issue for, say, example, for someone to wear a cross or someone to wear a hijab. That's their own business, and that's again their own bodily autonomy, their own, what to choose to adorn themselves with, and it's not really posing an issue to anyone else. If they're going around bullying other people and saying, "Oh yeah, no, you're going to hell because this is my, you don't believe in the same thing as me," that does become an issue, and that is what needs to be clamped down on. You can clamp down on intolerance without, we'll say, policing how people express things like their faith. And, like it, with regards to religious classes in schools, that's again up to, like, I wouldn't be for things like that being mandatory. If, for example, you have, say, for example, we'll say you could, in some schools, for example, like you can still have religious schools, but, they can have it. But like with regards to mainstream education, it's for, the instruction, and yeah, well, the wealth they have, like what wealth they have should be taken off them at this point, because they owe so much in what they owe the women out of the Magdalene laundries and the children from the industrial schools. They shouldn't have a penny in this country. But like outside of their churches, like, we want to, like you could live in the churches, but they've so much land and old locked up, convents and things like that, that, they have to be made pay for what they owe. But sorry, I got sidetracked replying to Patricia. What did you say again, Roger? I apologise now. To the ADA.
I suppose I'm asking that hard question. It's like you got to clamp down on things. You got to react to things, because that will happen. If you've got a super liberal society, you're going to get people who are, the conservatism inherent in their religion will start to emerge, and they'll start to control the people around there, and it'll be insidious. There'll be people, maybe they'll be homeschooling and stuff, and they're doing their specific thing that is kind of against the tenets of what our society is. And it won't be about race necessarily, it won't be about ethnicity, it won't be about a specific religion, but there's going to be groups of people who are doing stuff that is contrary to what we're trying to create. It's like, what's your thoughts on that? How do you deal with that?
Well, how you deal with it, first of all, is, like, for example, things and, ideologies that are hateful, that they do need to be, things that are hateful and are against the rights of other people do at least somewhat need to be kind of clamped down on, or watched, or whatever else have you, and called out at every available opportunity. That, however, does not need to be done by a state structure most of the time. For example, like you asked me before what to do about, for example, the neo-Nazis. And at the time, I said to you, like, okay, you have the issue of freedom of speech, and freedom of speech should not really be curtailed by the state. But should people really be protected? If they're going around harassing people, do we really need to send the guards out to protect them? Do you know what I mean? Like, people should have their freedom of speech, but they shouldn't really be shielded from the consequences of their freedom of speech. So,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, I mean,
I do. It's
yeah.
like when we were talking about if their child is interfered with by someone who's a fucking paedophile, I would look very charitably on that person. I would expect a judge to be like, listen, you literally murdered someone, but it was because, you actually assaulted their child.
Yeah.
Like it's like we can kind of, there's probably a way. It's not going to be easy. Jesus Christ, figuring out how to legislate that stuff is a nightmare. But
to be honest with you, some of it is just removing legislation. But
yes, delete things. That's the way.
Yeah, but like with regards now, we had this discussion a long time. It was before now that you started really talking to us, and there was now we were talking about the issue of self defense. And with regards to the issue of self-defence, like, there's one of the lads there now, and he had issues in the estate that he lives in, and there was another lad who can't actually really come out of where he's living, if there's any kind of crack going on. And he's not a member of ours now, because he because of his job he can't actually be politically involved. but like, in things like that, the guards will come around and tell you, we're coming around telling them, yeah, look, I know that they're here and that they're throwing fireworks at your house and trying to get him in the letterbox and trying to break windows and whatever else have you, and harassing your mother who is there with your younger siblings and that kind of thing. But if you actually do anything about it, you're going to go to jail. And things like that are absolutely ridiculous. Like, in the majority of things now, if you really look at it, a lot of the laws that we have do more to protect people who are attacking other people and infringing on other people's rights than they do to protect people who are having their rights infringed upon. So, like, in that particular example now, and when we're writing kind of some of the policy on self-defense, it's been one of our more controversial policies. Like, honestly, I don't think, for example, like, if a woman is being, say, raped or sexually abused or whatever, or, not only a woman, but anyone else, I really don't think that they should actually be convicted for that at all. If they turn around and kill their attacker, they shouldn't be convicted. Because like you have a whole heap of I don't mean after the fact, like, but while the thing is happening, and I mean it's the same thing. It should be looked on, as you say, very favourably.
It's a hard one to phrase, but it's definitely like, the consequences should be moderated. Go easy, like. Well, I mean, look, Jesus Christ, because you can imagine there's going to be cases where people overreact to things that maybe someone told them something that turned out not to be true, and somebody gets killed because your sister told you that a lad did this or that the other to you. You know what I mean? With the law, it's always going to be tricky. The thing about, of course, is like, if there's situations where we have a legal system where someone can afford better defense than someone else, like, people can get away with stuff just because they can throw more money at the problem. That's something to be dealt with.
Like, our judiciary should be elected. You have issues like, for example, Judge Martin Nolan, and like if he was elected, if our judiciary was elected, Judge Martin Nolan wouldn't have a seat for 5 minutes, especially if they could be recalled. Do you know what I mean? And you do have it, like we touched on this a bit, like the last time we talked about it. About the thing of we'll say, what was it again? About rehabilitation and prison, and that we do need probably more space for people to be dealt with, but that it should be rehabilitative and essentially kind of try to reduce offending rate and that kind of thing. But as we said, that people who have done severe, we'll say, sexual crimes should that we probably need some place to keep them kind of more long term. But like with regards to like the likes of the judiciary, that I personally think that if a person, we have areas, right, in a lot of places where we have a guard, a sergeant, or what have you, who does an awful lot of very, questionable things within the area, that like he mightn't convict someone down the road who's doing an awful lot of crime because he's getting information back off of him, and like the issue of informers is and the police reliance on informers is a huge issue, because they're often usually the worst criminals in an area. So like again, we'll say the guard, the sergeant in a particular district should again be directly elected from amongst the Gardaí.
I like it. But now, how do you can't? Do you know the way with the guards? They always try to make sure that guards are not from the local community because you're too biased. Would you change that, or how would you think about? Actually, this is a whole. I'm really interested in what you think about how you'd change the structure of the guards, or how you think it needs to be mended.
Well, Well, for one thing, changing them around is grand, but like, with regards to like, they could be.
I love the voting idea. I love the idea of voting for specific people to be guards, but of course that can be corrupted too. But maybe if it was like, you could like make up a biometric profile of specific guards, and people could sort of choose and vote. Oh no, you couldn't do that either. But that's a big one. If we could figure out the way to make the guards an anarcho kind of syndicalist structure, that'd be a major thing to do. Like,
well, I mean, what it could be done through is, like, for example, now you get a guard who comes into an area and he spends a year or two there, and then once he's there a year or two, people are kind of used to him, and they, like, he can then be elected for the sergeant position, for example.
Oh, I suppose, and you could actually have them ousted. You could have the community get to vote on a guard and like push him on. It's like, what your personality and the way you're doing things does not work here. You're not fired out of the guards. You're going to go somewhere else. Maybe there's some sort of strike on you or whatever, but you get to go and maybe, because of course being a guard is an ongoing process. You would learn. Say you do 2 years and you kind of half piss off the local community. You didn't do it right. You try somewhere else and maybe it doesn't work there. Maybe being a guard's not for you. There's lots of things you could do.
There is lots of things you can do. And another thing is, like, largely, if we reduce the law books with regards to silly stuff, And sure, I mean, they spend the most of our guards now at this point is the traffic court because it brings in fines. Like, one thing that I would favour, like I was talking before about putting on, for example, insurance just on the road tax. Having basic third party insurance as part of the road tax, and
Brilliant
then
idea.
yeah. But I was kind of looking at it again, and someone said to me, "Sure, in Australia they put the road tax on the fuel," and I was thinking, "Sure, could we not put both the insurance and the road tax on the fuel, or for example, on the charging point of an electric car?" And therefore, then we would need no enforcement at all of road tax or insurance. Because if the thing is driving on the road, it surely has fuel or electricity in it.
Yeah, and
So we would
listen,
need
the insurance company, holy fuck, it's a nightmare, like.
Yeah. So then, if someone
The way
wants
to
to
bypass
get
them.
so then if someone wants to get fully comprehensive, and it happens they want the security of it, they can go in and get their fully comp. But everyone else has basically by the state through the fuel tax, they have both their motor tax and their insurance, and they can just drive on, sit in and drive on.
What's your? This is my way of thinking about this. Is like
So
it's one what you're coming up with a sort of a midterm solution, but it's like what's the end game with regard to like transport and stuff? What's your sort of idyllic utopian idea of how we deal with getting around? Are we sticking with cars? Are we developing cars? How far
for
are we going
example,
with public
now,
transport? Do you think people should have a right to have their own machine on four wheels? What's the ideal scenario, I suppose?
well, like, I mean, people should have. Look, largely people should have the right to whatever they have, but if we reduce the need of it, like for example now, if we have a train system and a bus system that works, it's fast, it's on time, it's available, and it's either free to cheap, right? And if you're there and you have to put fuel or electricity into a car on four wheels there now, and it's maybe a little bit increased because it contains your motor tax and your insurance through it as well. So what are you going to do unless you're say doing something like farming or something like us? Do you really need a vehicle then? So then are you going to keep a vehicle?
That's going to piss some people off.
Look, anything you say now at this point will piss someone off.
Yeah.
So basically, like, I mean, we don't need to be morally policing the population. All we need to do is to make what is suitable for society attractive for people to do. So
yeah, I like that. That's the means to the end. It's just and I think this is going to be useful for us. Because other parties are afraid to say or afraid to have a long-term goal. They only have a short-term sort of populist goal. Whereas it's like, and this is me going back to sort of ultimately we want to try and remove anything that is hypothetically toxic to humans. Get that out of our world, get that out of Ireland. And that means sort of, funding research in universities, making like prizes for people to figure stuff out. But it's like, you don't have to be radical. You can just do baby steps. So the way you're talking about dealing with insurance and stuff, it's like you merge it, you get them to underwrite, carte blanche, all of a specific kind of vehicle rather than specific drivers and stuff. Like that's totally, the numbers would work. That would actually work, like, and you could do it gradually, It's brilliant, but I suppose, then you have the fun option of having a radical end game that doesn't scare people off. It lets people know that you're going in the right direction. You have a goal, but it doesn't have to be like they're going to take our cars. It's like incentivized.
Well, no, you can keep your you can keep your car, but here there's a bus for you. It's cheaper. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So. But it would have to be significantly cheaper. But another thing then as well is, like, for example now, do you know the green diesel?
Yeah.
Like, there's absolutely no reason for Bus Éireann to be paying for the diesel, at the full whack, for the white diesel.
Damn right.
Like,
good point.
Bus Éireann is already a semi-state company, and it would bring down the cost of transport significantly to allow them to use tax-free diesel. Because the thing about it is, okay, we can get very utopian, whatever else have you, but for quite a while we are going to still be dependent on diesel buses and things like that, because it takes a while to put things in place. So if we were to and there's a good thing there now, Maeve saying there, were they not charging their EV buses with a diesel generator? You see, this is the kind of problem, because there's no point at all whatsoever in bringing in things when we're not ready for them. There are things we can do in the interim that are an easy enough thing to do. So if we allow the buses to use the green diesel, and if we allow them to, that cuts costs in a very easy way. One of the biggest expenses that they have is obviously fuel, and if you pay tax and insurance out of it as well, sure, aren't we flying? So basically, if you have the buses there with no tax, they don't have to pay tax. Their insurance is including their fuel, and it's green diesel, so it's kind of costing very little. We can go ahead in, and we can make ticket prices a way cheaper. Or even in some areas where we have an awful lot of traffic, they could be free, just for the sake of having, a reduction in, traffic numbers. And we'll say all the costs associated with traffic jams and backlogs and wear on very, frequented roads. So on certain routes, we could even make certain buses free, just to get cars and the expensive them out of the way. A second now, I'm just going to see. And was in a Maeve saying, well, that's how the government operates. Half thought through plans about the various tax. I mean, this is the facts. Like I think at this point now, the people are very turned off of eco stuff, because they're used to this whole thing of, right, okay, they're going to say they're going to bring in this thing, and it's a money making scam, because you do have an issue of, you have this whole kind of green capitalist system. And it's kind of a thing of now, most of the things that have been brought in recent years do absolutely nothing at all in the whole world for the environment. But the way of making pretending that they're doing something to make more money out of. But yeah, again, as I said, for example, just small things like green diesel in the buses, and I don't know where I think most of our trains now are electric. Mostly, and even that are diesel as well. Do you know anything that's kind of state involving, or anything that's kind of, we'll say, service involving? Just let them use the green diesel. Makes the service cheaper.
Makes sense. I suppose maybe it's because we'd need to what is the status of, because you've got GoBus or something. Do GoBus get the bit of the green diesel, or does it have to be a state-owned sort of transport company?
Look, to be honest with you, for the case of staying out of trouble with the EU, we could give them all the green diesel.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not going to make that much sense.
Or even just taxi companies and stuff. Anybody who's making it their job to fill their fucking car, should get some kind of break. Yeah. Maybe it's not necessarily as extreme as the green diesel.
Yeah, but we could extend that out as far as, we'll say, commercial vehicles, and some commercial vehicles. Say, for example, like farmers' jeeps, leave them off with it as well. They're putting it in anyway, so we might as well just reduce the amount of. Do you know what I mean? We're
you get some fucking belt if you do it. Then you get caught. Jesus, desperate. Yeah.
But there's still a lot of fellas' chances, So essentially, it's kind of a case of, sure, why are we rapists and murderers here to try? Why are we here kind of, worrying about green diesel? Just make it legal, let them off it. Do you know? So, it's them that's mostly doing it anyway. Everyone else can be kind of caught for it,
That's true.
But, yeah. Knuckles running as my sister wants to pass behind and doesn't want to be seen, I think. No, it was just as well that wasn't the lower top I done. But anyway, but with regards to things like that, there's a whole heap of things that we can do. It's just removing hassle. We've ourselves tied up so much now with legislation and hassle that if you want to step outside the door, there's about 5 different laws you have to consider.
Yeah.
So what is the
point? That's it. Very easy. Just get rid of bullshit.
Yeah.
You could spend your first, like if you were to have 4 years of power, you could just literally just be trying to delete all the stupid stuff and all the stuff that gets in the way and is just not necessary. That's just there to sort of support,
Listen, you could spend
jobs work kind of stuff.
You could spend your first year just going in legalising things, and then after that say, right, well, now that we've all of that nonsense got rid of, what are we putting in? So, like I reckon you'd solve an awful lot of this country with a couple of forensic accountants and a couple of solicitors. You'd solve an awful lot of the the nonsense in this country.
From outside the state.
You're from outside the state as well, Master's piping up there to remind me. Like you'd want them from somewhere else. Because, the usual corruption crack that goes on here, but there's an awful lot to be found about where our money has been going to all along. So, I mean, like... Yeah. But Patricia's saying there, all the Greens have done is tax the poor, and like April said, now they're us people with no fire and cold. And I mean, that's a fact, like, because...
Yeah, it is.
Like, okay, people who have their own bit of timber and their own bit of turf are fairly all right, but anyone who was relying on their neighbour with the bit of timber or the bit of turf are kind of fucked. And interestingly enough, did anyone notice the fact that they didn't go near home heating oil or foreign coal or anything? And we're still bringing those briquettes in from Germany.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, as I said, I think I said it to you before, like, an awful lot of the areas are marked out for re-wetting. There are about 24 and over % of Irish land is applicable for mining licenses, and they were all those mining licenses. That was all put up by Eamon Ryan.
Fucking idiot, man! Eamon Ryan, I just don't understand how his mind works. He's just kind of through whatever crack appears, he'll try and put his bit of green on it. Like, but sure, it's never the right thing. Yeah. He's a disaster. Like, well, he means well, but Jesus, it's desperate. Fucking mining lithium out of Ireland, like, when you have countries with 10 times the supply and like a fraction of the cost of extracting it. It's just literally not possible. And yet he's allowing these people to go fucking looking for it. Like,
listen, I can't think of the name of the batteries, but there's a new kind of battery now that's completely outmoded than lithium. So why the hell are we starting mining it now?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Well, no, it's like they might find something that's slightly better or slightly different, but I think for the time being, for the next few years, lithium is going to be the buy. It's getting off the cobalt now. Hopefully the cobalt, that can be left behind, because that's the big problem. Yeah.
But I just wanted to say there now, he came in a while ago. I'm not sure if he's still there now. The young lad there in the party, Joe, his name there was, can't think of what his username in particular. I saw him coming in. I remember when I saw him coming in. But Jesse, anyway, I just wanted to say hello to him because I've been promising him kind of a call out a couple of times. He's a good young fella. He'd be in kind of his mid-late teens, but he kind of gives us a good hand. He's kind of like our little, we joke, we call him Ogra Roots. So I just wanted to say hello to him there, Jesse Lahan, if he's still watching. But yeah, but basically anyway, but I mean, like, with regards to the whole situation with the lithium and that, like, I mean, most of those things we don't actually need, because if we can have enough power generation to export what we're not using, they'll take it from elsewhere. So if we get our power generation up, and if we continue with, say, that cable to France or wherever else have you, we can produce a way more power than we need. So we don't need to store it at all. And then just kind of let them there in the, in the continent, pay for what they're drawing off of us, without any need for battery storage.
Or with the Mayo gas.
And we don't need to worry about the Mayo gas. Sure, if we like, I mean, if we can leave that in the ground, if we
should have bringing it in now.
Are they bringing that in through Mayo?
Some of the profit.
Oh, sure, that's a long while back. Yeah. Oh, the Shell to Sea. Let's go on.
Now, April, I better go and help with the old bedtime routine, so I'm going to have to log off now.
All right. Good night, Roger. I might finish this up as well
Good
now,
chatting,
because
as always.
Yeah, you too. I had a party meeting as well, so I might as well turn this off now and join that. Anyway, that was
Oh yeah, I
essentially
might
kind of
join that
talking about.
later. We'll see how I get on with these hoodlums.
Yeah, yeah. All right, good. The best of luck with him anyway. And but anyway, that was we'll consider that the end of this now. There was a few other people I kind of wanted to talk about, but to kind of didn't get along. April was the actual date of the horizon. But so anyway, I'm going to leave it at that now. I'll be putting up this in its full version on YouTube if anyone wants to have a look at it, and we'll see you again soon.